James Bond left the building.
Yeah, he gave him his martini, shaken, not stirred. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Joby was there. Yeah. What time did Douglas Murray stop speaking? I had to go home. Yeah. Really? I had to go prepare a share. Uh,
1,000 people on stage. Was it dinner?
yeah,
Was it
yeah,
dinner?
it was a dinner. It's huge. The biggest I've
How
ever.
was the food?
I think it was roasted pheasant, it was kind of like.
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay. All right, let's get started, Rabbi Isai. So we started the Shaila on Friday. We'll just read it again quickly. We want to try and define the parameters of the 10th of the 10 commandments, lo tachmod, thou shalt not covet. Okay? Hitarasti lifnei shavua v'sikamti im chami kamen dunya hu noten li. I got engaged. Mazel tov. I negotiated with my future father-in-law what the dowry is going to be. That's not something that is normally done in our circles, but
Obviously it's still done.
obviously it's still done. It's especially in Eretz Israel.
Have you seen cases like that in Phil people?
I do. I know of cases, yeah, but it's a foreign thing. In other words, it's not. I'm not familiar with it. I mean, personally, I would. Well, I only have one son-in-law. Thank God he's from a wealthy family, so that was never part of our negotiations. Negotiation was, what do you need from me? And it was based, but that was between the two,
Yes.
the two mechutanim. So acharei ha'erisin nodali sheyesh lo kama klei kesef sheyad otam l'nedunya shelachat mi benotzav. So after the engagement, I discovered that my future father-in-law has a number of very valuable silver heirlooms that he had already said that he was going to give away for dowry to his other daughters. And when I heard about it, I said to him, hey, can I get one of those, whatever, silk candlesticks or whatever it was? And it seems to me that he was embarrassed. And so he felt because of that, he should give one to me as well. But I feel that I pressured him. I don't feel that I actually gave him a fair chance. Do I have an obligation to return those items? Because, this is obviously an Erlich guy. It's not like he's a grubber, he seems to be a decent fellow. He wants to know, did he do the right thing or not? And how do I correct it? So, Ne'amar b'Torah, here's the tshuva. It says in the Torah, lo tachmod beis re'echa, va'avdo va'amaso v'shoro v'chamaro v'chol asher l're'echa. So the Torah says, you shall not covet, which is a desire for yourself, the home of your friend, his servant, his handmaid, his ox, his donkey, and anything that belongs to your fellow. Now, it also includes your friend's wife, but it really is more, the Torah focuses mostly on his possessions. Because of Harambam, kol hachome davar mechaveru v'hitzir bo v'lakcho mimenu, he says, the Rambam writes that if there's something that your friend has that you really want, and you pressure him to the point where he finally agrees to sell it to you, but he does it under pressure, afal pisha nasan lo damim rabim, over belavdelo sachmod afilu im amarot sa'ani. Even though you pay him full price for it, nonetheless, you have violated the negative commandment of you shall not covet, even if he ends up saying, okay, fine, I'm happy to sell it to you. Okay, in other words, if so the Isser of lo tachmod is not just to desire what belongs to your friend, because that's something in the heart, but it's to act upon that and basically to manifest your desire for that object by putting pressure on someone to sell it to you when you know he really doesn't want to sell. And finally, he agrees because you've hacked him a chinik so much, he finally agrees to sell. Now, that's the way the Rambam understands it, and that's how it's paskened in Shulchan Aruch. Amnam harayvid sham cholak alav v'kasav shedavka im hamocher lo amar rodsa ani. But the Ravid says it doesn't go that far. It's only a violation of lo tachmod if he doesn't end up saying, okay, fine, I'm happy to sell it to you. But if he ends up after you put pressure on him saying, okay, fine, we have a deal, I'm happy to sell it to you, then you're no longer in violation. Because there's a Gemara that says that even if they string someone up and he ends up selling, the sale is a valid sale. In other words, the Ravid says that a certain amount of pressure is not a violation of lo tachmod. To put pressure on someone to sell something to you is not a violation according to the Ravid. The Rambam says that even pressure that results in a full-hearted sale is still a violation of lo tachmod. The Ravid disagrees. The Ravid feels that you're only in violation if even during the sale, the guy's shaking his head and saying, I really don't want to do this. V'chein kasbo hatoisvis b'sanhedrin she'over below tachmod davka im hu lo mishalem or im hu lo mishalem. Maybe it's im hu lo mishalem. I'm not sure. Tosfos says the same idea, that you're only in violation of lo tachmod if you don't pay full purchase price. But if you end up going through a valid sale and there's a legal exchange of cash for goods, then there's no violation of lo tachmod. V'Rabbeinu Yonah b'sharei tshuva kasav adam nichbad shemevakesh liknot chayfetz me adam acher v'rak machmat shehu mitbayesh mimenu hu mocher lo et hachayfetz. Rabbeinu Yonah in the Shari Tshuva, which, by the way, is an important work to study, especially this time of year. I know very often in yeshivas, the boys are studying the gates of repentance during the month of Elul through Yom Kippur. He writes that if a very honored person within the community, like a guy that you don't want to say no to, because you say no to him now, it won't end up well for you in the future. So he comes over to you and says, I'd like to buy your such and such, whatever the item is. And you really don't want to sell it, but it's because you're embarrassed to say no to the fellow. You end up selling it to him. Asr lo liknos hachefetz im lo she yodea shehu mocher lo benefesh chafetza v'lo yera levavo besita lo. So Rabbeinu Yonah writes that the honored person, the VIP, is not allowed to purchase the item from him unless he knows that the person is selling it to him with a full heart and with full desire. Ki etzem ha'havtzara ha'machricha et ha'adam limkar hi'asura. Because putting pressure on a person, Rabbeinu Yonah seems to agree with the Rambam, putting pressure on a person is the thing that is prohibited. And therefore, it seems like he holds like the Rambam, where even if it ends up being a full sale, where the guy says, okay, no problem, I'll sell it to you, there's still a violation of lo sachmod. Okay, because of that, so because you have both Rabbeinu Yonah and the Rambam being machmir like that, Kasav hachafetz chaim shechatan lo yevakesh mechamiv dvarim shelo sikmu b'tanoim ve'hacham mitbayesh v'notein. The Chafetz Chaim writes, and this is in his Sefer HaMitzvot HaKatzar, which has been translated into English many times, that a son-in-law should not ask his father-in-law for things that were not agreed to in the Tanoim document. You know, they used to do the Tanoim at the time of the engagement, and it was between the two fathers. Then afterwards, the son-in-law says, would it be okay? Could you do X, Y, and Z for me beyond that? He says, you know that the father-in-law is going to be embarrassed to say no. It's a new relationship. So you shouldn't put pressure on someone who's going to acquiesce, but only because of embarrassment. Because anytime a person relinquishes something, but does so out of embarrassment, not because he really wants to, there's been a violation of lo tachmod. So
It's a very difficult concept, I like to enforce. Like, how do you know every time you're gonna buy something, you have to get upset that it's no side? Like, you're talking about everything and anything.
you have to really assess the situation. You have to go over to someone and say, are you interested in selling your car? I notice you have this beautiful yellow Corvette in your driveway. Are you in the market to sell it? And the guy says, no, I'm sorry. It's a one of a kind and it's my favorite car. So you say to him, well, if you ever change your mind, let me know. Fine. There's no low tachmod. There's no pressure. But if every time you see him at Kiddush, you say, no, when are you going to be ready to sell me the Corvette? Yeah. Right?
Where it can get a little more tricky is let's say you're selling a car or house or something like that, and then the pressure's put onto you. Well, the market value isn't this; it really is this, and then you feel a pressure that maybe when in a negotiation for financially of where the item should be.
Right. So that's not a problem of lo tachmod, of thou shalt not covet, because there's already been an agreement to sell. That's negotiation. There's nothing wrong with negotiation. Well, there's always pressure in negotiation. You want to sell it for high, I want to buy it for low. So we have to negotiate, right?
What about, Rabbi, if you know someone's making Aliyah and they've packed up all the house and you're sort of saying goodbye to them, before everything's gone, and you see something that you say to the mate, are you shipping that? And they go, no. So are you allowed to ask, can I have it?
Of course, why not? Why not? Well, you can say,
is that,
well, probably the menschlich thing to do is, would you like to sell that?
well, how you transaction,
Yeah.
the fact that it's not like it's a sale, it's not like it's a garage sale, it's not like you just go and say goodbye and there's something there that you're asking about.
Yeah, no.
Coveting?
I don't think it's coveting.
You see how it's very gray.
Coveting is only prohibited if it translates into putting pressure on someone
To get the item.
to get the item, right?
So
How you feel in your heart is, according to the Rambam, not the prohibition. Prohibition is putting undue pressure on somebody when you detect that they may not want to sell it.
Isn't it acting under type, acting under type? Like, if you think about doing a Vera, you don't get it a Vera, but here you are getting a Vera if you are coveting someone's.
Right. It's because it's important to know that for the Rambam, the 613 commandments do not, by and large, with some exception, do not address a person's emotional state. You have to act upon it in order to be in violation of the mitzvah. So how do you violate coveting? You violate coveting by manifesting it, by trying to put pressure on someone to relinquish something that is theirs and sell it or give it to you when you know they don't want to.
Actually, secular law, it gets into this area of duress. So you have physical duress, so you hold a gun to somebody and say, sell me your house. And then the guy didn't really want to, but is forced to. But then you have economic duress, which is basically where you go to the guy and say,
You exploit someone's
you
weakness.
exploit them and say, if you don't sell it to me, I'm going to go to your competitor and tell them that you're a schmo or whatever it is, and you're going to lose business by there. So you take the guy's consent away, basically. He really doesn't want to sell to you, but you economically invoke duress. The contract that ends up happening is voidable depending on the victim. If the victim says, I don't want to do this, the contract's done. It's void. It's not void, it's voidable depending on.
Even though he signed the contract.
Yeah, so it's up to him to decide whether or not, like, I want to go through this or I don't, right? If he says I don't, and you forced me and all that, the law would say, if it's gone to the point where you've taken away his consent by this economic pressure, I'm gonna cancel you in the marketplace or something like that, then it's the
Well,
contract.
that's extortion, that's extortion.
Well, it could be extortion, but it's called, in civil law, it's called economic duress, which voids contracts.
What's the difference between extortion and what?
Well, extortion is a crime.
Extortion will whack you if you don't.
It's a different kind of crime. It's more subtle.
Yeah. Right.
Business-
No, I do hear the difference, because extortion is like, I have photos of, of you in a compromising situation, and I'll reveal that to your wife if you don't,
That's pretty much blackmail, right?
yeah, same thing as blackmail, yeah. But you can definitely hear that there is going to be some gray area. Let's say someone wants to do business with you. They want to do business with you, and you say to them, I'll happily do business with you. Is your yellow Corvette up for sale?
There's no negotiation.
Yeah, it could. It could be part of the negotiation. But if you know that the guy really doesn't want to sell his yellow Corvette,
So if you've been asking for it for the last month and he said no, and
Yeah.
you found a little bit of leverage, you think you can get.
yeah, so that's where it could be lo tachmod, even though it's part of negotiation, but the guy doesn't really want to sell that. Okay. Anyway, the Makor Baruch also says va'ayin od b'shut b'tzel hachachma. He says this is a 19th century tshuva sefer b'tzel hachachma. He writes shelimed zchus al oisam chasanim hanoyagim kain. He says he does find defense for those chatanim who, after the tanoim have been done, they ask for more. He says, "Al pishita saposkim shein iser lo tachmod b'matana ayin sham sherich bazeh." Apparently, this was a real thing. This was like a big thing back then. He says there are some poskim who say that if you ask someone to give you a gift, there's no lo tachmod. It's only if you pressure them to selling it. V'ayin od bepischei choshen shekosav de'efshar shezeh eino begeder matana elakein mekach. And the Pischei Choshen is not so sure. He feels that maybe asking your future father-in-law for a gift does fall under the rubric of a sale, because there is something that's being bartered, which is the marriage of his daughter. So it is a gray area. But Rav Sharaga feels that what you did was lo tachmod, and you really shouldn't accept the silver gifts. So that seems to be what he's paskening. It's a very short tshuva. And now we're ready to go on to the next one.
Wow. So he questions that by asking for the silver, whatever it was, just whatever, that he actually was covered in it and shouldn't have asked, because it was a change of contract from
Yeah,
the original.
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, if you really needed it because it couldn't function, like, let's just say it's so gray. Like you said, it's a locker. Well, they're not gonna have a locker for Shabbos. Everyone else has lockers for the family. They want to get a locker too. Or if it's something that they need to live.
You don't need a lachter to
No.
live.
Okay. Well, it depends who you ask, or it depends who's coming to dinner. But
I remember I wanted to get candlesticks for one of my daughters-in-law, and I saw something in a catalog, and it looked beautiful. I ordered it, and when I went to visit them when they first got married, these candlesticks that looked like these big, beautiful candlesticks, they were tiny. And I paid a lot of money for them, what I thought was a lot of money, because they were silver. And I was so apologetic, and I made it a point to buy her another set of candlesticks afterwards. But to her credit, she said, I love them. She was so happy with them. So it's like you don't,
gotta love those
you know.
Yeah, exactly the trouble.
That's one of my she's one of my favorites. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
On that one.
Yeah. But yeah, so in other words, right, there are what Moshe is basically saying is that there are certain things that are part of what let's call Jewish culture, which people view as necessities. It's considered to be customary that when the kids get married, someone buys them silver candlesticks. And usually it's the groom's family that buys the girl the candlesticks. And it's considered to be custom that the girl gets a diamond ring for her engagement, and she gets a bracelet in the yichud room, and for some it's a shaitel. You have to pay.
He gets a watch, right?
He gets a watch.
And a shot.
And a shot.
If he wants. I asked for Netflix.
And the talus is that, yeah, okay.
I asked for.
No, because with the silver too.
Oh, with the atara.
And the bag and everything. Keep adding on.
He goes with the talus.
I don't know who set those rules, by the way.
Yeah.
It's pretty weird.
I want you to know, I'm coming out with an article in the new Chachmei Lev journal. That's one of the things I write about, is that there's certain things that you are permitted to question within our faith, and certain things we don't question. But societal issues like these, a person should always have a healthy dose of doubt and skepticism about some of the things that we do as a Jewish society, because none of these things, or most of these things, are not based on any documented kind of religious source. A lot of these things that are just convention are nauseating, quite frankly, and they shouldn't have crept in as being like basically part of the Masorah.
It
Yeah,
becomes like that.
yeah. And
I
what
told you in
when
Lakewood, the girl's family has to support them for the first 2 years. That's it. Even if the other side is loaded and they don't have any money, the color side, they have nothing. They have to go out and borrow. I've seen this.
Isn't there an acronym for what you have to buy the?
That's why you're talking about the wedding.
Flops.
The wedding, the flop, the flowers.
Good morning, Izzy. Welcome to our shir.
Waiting outside.
Just wait for the right moment.
Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next tshuva. Okay. Kabbalas kesef miganav shebolahachzir mashagonav b'meshach shanim. Okay, accepting money back from a ganav who stole from you many years ago and now wants to make restitution. Okay, now we had a previous tshuva, if you remember, the guy that was noshing on the peanuts at the front of the makolet, over many years becomes a Baal tshuva and realizes that he's been stealing less than a shava pruta over the course of many years. Rav Sharaga says you should feel a sense of duty because according to many poskim, it can have a cumulative effect. This is a different tshuva. Let's see. Yeshli makolet, va'ani chayev harbe kesef la'acherim. I own a makolet, and in the course of buying and selling, I owe a lot of money to many different people. V'hinei yom echad hofia etzli adam shetoein shahayagonev li mehamakolet b'meshech harbe shanim. There's a guy who comes forward to me. Maybe he's the guy that was eating the peanuts. We don't know. Could be but it's the other person is the one now asking the shaila. But he says there's a guy who approached me and says, over the course of the last number of years, I've been shoplifting from you for a long time. And now he's become a Baal Tshuva, and he wants to make restitution. And it's a large sum of money. Is it permissible for me to accept that money from him? Why would you think not?
It's a new person.
What?
It's a new person. It's true.
The money was stolen that he's getting back.
Maybe it's too much.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If the money maybe that he's doing is stolen,
That's it. How do you know that you stole?
because he's a Choshen B'tshuva, he's doing that. Why would he have stolen money?
All right. So, first of all, a person who steals should return what he stole. But what if it's an exorbitant amount and you know that by accepting that money from him, you're going to ruin him financially? Is there ever this concept in halacha, which we do know there's a concept in halacha called takanas hashavim, where sometimes we tell the aggrieved party not to accept or not to coerce the ganav to pay back. So let's see what the parameters of that are, because Chazal wanted to create a mechanism where people who wanted to become Bali Tshuva would be able to, without thinking that there's no way for me to do tshuva for this because there's no way I can ever come up with that money. So let's see what the parameters of this are. So the guy, the Makolet owner, who himself is in Hak, and he's got lots of debts, and he could really use that money. So he wants to accept it, but he wants to make sure that it's okay. Now, so here's the tshuva. Hinei pashut de bederch klal kol adam shegazal tzarech lakayim mitzvahs v'heshivas hagzela sher gazal. Obviously, anytime a person steals, he has an obligation to make restitution for what he stole. That's what the Torah says. Return the stolen item that you stole. Amnam haGemara omeres bevava kama. However, there is a Gemara that states as follows: Hagazlonim umalve beribish shebo lachzer es hakesav shelakhu. If a person is a gazlan, or a person lent money with ribis, and they want to return the excess money that they took on the loan because they realized that it was ill-gotten, and they want to return it, ein makabla mehen, we don't accept their money. And v'hamakabel mehem ein ruach chachamim noche mimenu. And if a person does accept it from them, the rabbis aren't happy with that person. Now, what's the rationale behind this? So we'll see. Rav Shirag is going to explain to us why the rabbis stepped in and said, don't accept the money from someone who stole and wants to do tshuva. Takana zu nesesa bimei Rebbe. This was enacted in the times of Rebbe Yehuda Hanassi. Shahayamaisa ba'adam echad shahaya gazlan, ubikesh lasos tshuva. There was a person who was a thief, and he wanted to do tshuva, lahachzir kol ma shegazol me'acherim. And he had accumulated over the years some really cool stuff, like valuable stuff. Amr lo ishta, and they started to feel bad. Maybe they were suffering from something, and he realized, over the course of time, look at everything I stole. How am I gonna, maybe the Hashem is punishing me. So his wife said to him, Im ata chozer b'tshuva, ata tzorech lachzer afilu et ha'avneit she'alecha. His wife said to him, if you are going to do tshuva, you're going to have to give back your belt. Basically, you won't have anything to hold your pants up. You'll be so destitute because basically you've stolen everything that you've gotten, you've stolen. There are some flim-flammers out there, right? That, if they really try to make a reckoning, they'll be left with nothing. And as a result of his wife's argument, he ended up not doing tshuva. And that's why the rabbi said, if a guy wants to do tshuva for the things that he stole, don't accept it, don't take the money from him, so that people will not refrain from tshuva. You want to encourage people to do tshuva, but if you know it's too difficult for them to do tshuva, don't accept the money. And if you do accept it, the chachamim are unhappy with you. That Rashi basically explains that if you accept the money from the guy, then ein ruach chachma, rather, there's no spirit of wisdom and compassion within you, because you're holding him to the letter of the law, and you're going to bring him to ruination as a result. Now, obviously, we have to. There's a tension here, right? There's two imperatives. One is the guy has a biblical obligation to return what he stole. So by letting him off the hook, aren't you going against Torah law? But we also understand that there could be certain circumstances where a person should say, Ich bin Michael, right? I forgive it because I realize that to go after you and to make an accounting of everything that you stole is going to end up being counterproductive. So what's the calculus? How do you make this kind of resolution between those two tensions? So,
Well,
yeah.
Also the situation, what happens if the person is extremely wealthy, can afford to, and the person stole from him, since that's destitute.
Well, right. So it doesn't seem that this would apply in that situation, Hal, right? And I hear what you're saying. So the question is, how do you weigh this? How do you assess this? And it seems for example, in your case, that it's not going to apply in all situations. It'll only apply in situations where by accepting the guy's proposal, you realize there's no way he's going to be able to go through with this, or he's just not going to do tshuva.
Well, the partial payment, you know.
Yeah, maybe a partial payment would be acceptable. So this is where we'll hold it for today. We're going to have to come to some kind of understanding of how to maneuver this in halacha. Okay, so everybody have a great day, and we'll see you later.